Hello my dear friends, and welcome back to my channel. The other night, as I was about to fall asleep, I saw a very vivid picture in my head. It was a beautiful horse with very dramatic lighting. It was striking, and I knew I had to try to paint it. So today, I'll be recreating that image that I saw in my head. I found that I often receive inspiration this way, completely out of the blue, as though the universe itself is asking me to paint something that it wants to convey. Maybe it's because one day the piece will speak to someone and bring them hope or healing in a time of darkness, recovery, or grief. Or maybe it will remind them of a great joy they remember. Or maybe it will memorialize a beloved soul who has transitioned into their next life. I never know what my art may mean to people, but I am a humble vessel. I believe that something kind and loving from beyond the realm of what we can see asks me to paint, so that one day it can find that person that it was created for, and they can receive that message that they always needed to hear. With regards to my process for this painting, this was relatively uncharted territory for me, but I've always had my own way of doing things, so instead of a typical wash of ochre or burnt sienna for the underpainting, I found that I love to use vivid colors, like magenta or another vibrant pink. For me, it's just fun, and it also helps me to see where I haven't layered on enough paint or blended edges together, since the vivid color will shine through in an obvious way. As I don't usually paint with oils, I was just experimenting and playing around to get to know how the paints behave. I found that using a dry brush to blend worked really well for me. I would wipe off the brush, zigzag it along the two edges I wanted to blend, and then do long, smooth strokes in the perpendicular direction to smooth it all out. I'm sure there are other methods, but this one worked really well for me. also take my time and divide the painting up into very small sections, like working on one specific muscle at a time with this horse. I find it easiest to paint all the values in one go, the shadows, midtones, and highlights, and then just blend them all together, then move on to the next section. Breaking it down into pieces made it so much more manageable because working on all of the midtones of a painting, then all of the shadows and highlights across an entire piece at once is just too much for me to figure out and juggle. I love working this way most of all because I get so hyper-focused on each little section at a time that when the piece is finally done and I step back from it, it's like I'm seeing it all for the first time. That's so magical to me to see how all the little pieces come together. I took a break and went on a walk through the woods, and I found these beautiful thistles that had transformed from purple to a cotton white, seemingly overnight. It was so magical, seeing the beauty of these flowers and the ever-changing nature of all things. When the image of this horse presented itself to me a few nights ago, I was actually really shocked because there's this very interesting story behind it that I had forgotten. In the back of my mind, I've always had this idea of what the pinnacle of my artistic talent would be. It would be this grand masterpiece in oils on a canvas as large as an entire wall, and would be of very dramatic, highly contrasted horses, almost Renaissance-like. I think my dream goal showed up this way because I work on small surfaces pretty exclusively in watercolor, so this dream painting is the exact opposite of my comfort zone, which is something that I never really thought about before. So I took this painting as a sign to test out how close I actually am to creating that dream painting, and what I need to work on before I get there. It's just so funny to me because I'd completely forgotten about that goal, and it was never something that I had clearly defined or ever even dreamed of working towards. Just some misty image of my dream artistic self. But maybe I'm much closer than I think. Paintings like this can feel so daunting, and in fact, I was completely dumbfounded as to why I was attempting something completely unlike anything I've ever tried before. But I know that if I feel called to do it, even if I have no idea how, then something else within me will take over, some part of me that already knows how to do it. I believe that I must have been a painter in a past life, and that when I create, this part of me is awakened and paints through me. I suppose it makes the most sense explaining how I just woke up with this ability one day. When I paint, it's always like I'm rediscovering as much as I am learning. I feel like so much of life is like that, like it's a remembering. And the hard parts of life help us to remember who we are, remember that we've done it all before, to remember that we've learned so much that we can now give to others. I spent some time mulling over what I wanted to call this painting and what place it would hold in my repertoire. After about a week, I decided that I want this piece to be the first in a new series based on the Arthurian legends. I've always been so fascinated by those stories, and I see them as a beautiful metaphor for how we are all called to and yet choose our own fates. Like how it is simultaneously both planned and chosen, and that fate and free will are not opposites, but two ways of looking at the same mysterious thing. This piece will be named Galahad, after a knight who was strong and gentle, kind and honorable. He'll be the first of many paintings, each increasing in size and complexity, all culminating in that dream masterpiece I've only ever seen in my head, which I actually realize may be much closer than I thought. That final piece will be named Avalon, the mystical resting place of the Arthurian knights. As always, thank you so much for joining me on this journey today. It means so much to me. Please let me know in the comments if you have a dream painting or an idea of how your dream creative self will manifest. I would love to hear. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I'll see you again soon.